You found your way to Whispers of Crimes, a quiet corner where the shadows of the past are gently told. Here, we speak of real crimes and mysteries, not to shock or scare, but to wonder, to reflect, and maybe to help you fall asleep. So close your eyes, let your thoughts slow down, and come with me into tonight's case. They vanished without a trace. From Toronto's bustling day village, men simply disappeared one after another. Over nearly a decade, no crime scenes, no bodies, just silence and fear. Police said there was no foul play. The city moved on. But someone was hunting, patient, calculated, hidden in plain sight. Behind the smile of a friendly landscaper beneath the soil of suburban backyards lay secrets too dark to imagine. Brief silence. Then one name whispered slowly, "This is not just the story of a serial killer. It's the story of those he took, the warnings that were ignored, and the community that refused to stay silent." Asterisk, what happens when evil grows unnoticed in your own backyard? Chapter 1. A killer in plain sight. Bruce McArthur was the last person anyone would suspect. By all accounts, he was a soft-spoken, friendly man in his mid-60s. He worked as a self-employed landscaper in Toronto and had a reputation for being punctual and polite. He even played Santa Claus at a local mall during the holidays. Neighbors described him as quiet and harmless. But beneath this gentle exterior, McArthur was leading a double life, one of brutality and deception. Between 2010 and 2017, a number of men vanished from Toronto's Church and Wellesley neighborhood, a historic hub for the city's LGBTQ+ community. These men had common traits. Most were gay or bisexual, many were racialized, and some were either new to Canada or dealing with homelessness and addiction. One by one, they disappeared, often without a trace. Despite the community raising concerns, their disappearances were frequently dismissed or downplayed by police. McArthur knew his victims. He often met them through dating apps like Growler and Silver Daddies. He exploited the vulnerabilities of men who were often isolated, culturally, socially, and emotionally. And as it would later be revealed, he was hiding the most horrifying evidence in a place no one thought to look. Inside large garden planters on residential properties where he worked. Chapter 2. The Vanishing Men. The first known victim was Skendaraj Skenda Navaratnam, a 40-year-old Sri Lankan refugee who had come to Canada to start anew. A fixture in Toronto's gay community, he vanished in September 2010. He was last seen leaving a bar with an unknown man. Just a few months later, in December 2010, Abdulbasir Fazi disappeared. A married father of two, Fazi led a double life, frequenting the gay village in secret. His abandoned vehicle was later found in a nearby park, but Fazi himself was never seen again. In October 2012, Majid Kayhan, a 58-year-old Afghan immigrant, also went missing. Like Fazi, he was closeted, fearing rejection from his religious community and family. Police noticed the pattern. All three men were of South Asian or Middle Eastern descent, gay or bisexual, and missing from the same area. They opened an investigation, Project Houston. Despite initial hope, Project Houston went nowhere. Police claimed they had no evidence of foul play and eventually shut the investigation down in 2014. No charges were laid, and no suspects were named. But the disappearances didn't stop. In April 2016, Sarash Mahmoudi, a 50-year-old Iranian man, was reported missing by his wife. Then came Dean Lisowik, a 47-year-old who struggled with homelessness and mental illness. Unlike the others, Dean was never reported missing. His disappearance slipped completely under the radar. In April 2017, Salim Asen, a Turkish immigrant and aspiring writer, vanished. Just 2 months later, Andrew Kinsman, a well-known LGBTQ plus advocate, also disappeared. Kinsman's case finally shifted police perception. Friends knew he was missing almost immediately. More importantly, Kinsman left a clue behind, a calendar entry with just one name, Bruce. Chapter 3, Project Prism and the Breakthrough. The entry Bruce in Kinsman's calendar wasn't just a clue. It was the turning point. Following the disappearances of Essen and Kinsman, Toronto police launched Project Prism in 2017. Unlike Project Houston, Prism was more aggressive and technologically advanced. Investigators examined video footage, phone records, and online dating profiles. They identified a suspect, Bruce McArthur, a man with a prior record of violence. In 2001, McArthur had been charged with assault after attacking a male sex worker with a metal pipe in his apartment. He pleaded guilty and received a conditional sentence, probation, no jail time. Police never followed up on his behavior in subsequent years. Under surveillance, officers watched McArthur closely. They observed him luring men into his apartment. On January 18, 2018, fearing for one man's life, officers raided McArthur's apartment and found a young man tied to a bed but alive. The man, a recent immigrant, had agreed to a sexual encounter but was unaware of the true danger he faced. In the apartment, investigators found evidence of at least 8 victims: photos, hair samples, personal belongings, trophies of murder. McArthur had photographed his victims post-mortem, often posed in disturbing scenes. What followed was a gruesome discovery. On a quiet property in Leaside, where McArthur did landscaping work, police began digging through large planters in the backyard. Remains of multiple men were discovered, hidden in soil and roots. It was a horror buried in everyday life. Chapter 4. Who they were. The 8 confirmed victims were Skandaraj Navaratnam, 40 years old, refugee from Sri Lanka, animal lover. Abdul Basir Faizi, 42 years old, closeted family man, factory worker. Majid Khan, 58 years old, father of 4, deeply religious. Sarash Mahmoodi, 50 years old, known for his sense of humor and kindness. Dean Lisowick, 47 years old, vulnerable and living on the margins. Salim Essen, 44 years old, aspiring poet, spiritual seeker. Andrew Kinsman, 49 years old, community activist, well-loved. Kirishna Kanagaratnam, 37 years old, a Tamil refugee ordered deported before he disappeared. Some had families who never knew they were gay. Others lived on the edges of society. They were racialized, undocumented, poor, or homeless. In many ways, they were invisible, and that invisibility is what McArthur exploited. Dean Lisowick, for example, was never reported missing. Kirishna Kanagaratnam wasn't. Even on the radar of Project Prism, his identity was only confirmed months later through DNA analysis. The LGBTQ community had been sounding the alarm for years, but they were not listened to. One activist said, "We told police something was happening. They didn't take us seriously until someone white and well-known, Andrew, went missing." Chapter 5. Justice in the courtroom. On January 29, 2019, Bruce McArthur pleaded guilty to 8 counts of first-degree murder. The courtroom was packed. Family members of the victims sat side by side with LGBTQ plus activists, journalists, and police officers. As the Crown presented the chilling details, the room sat in stunned silence. McArthur had restrained and murdered his victims in his bedroom, often using ligatures. He photographed the bodies and stored the images in digital folders labeled with the victims' names. He trimmed facial hair post-mortem, posed the bodies, and kept their belongings. The calculated nature of his crimes made clear that these were not crimes of passion. They were acts of control, power, and dehumanization. Justice John McMahon called the crimes pure evil, stating that McArthur had shown no remorse, only self-preservation. The court sentenced him to life in prison with no chance of parole for 25 years, the maximum allowed under Canadian law. McArthur will be 91 when eligible, a symbolic gesture as few believe he will live that long, but many felt justice was incomplete. Why hadn't police investigated more thoroughly when people began vanishing? Could lives have been saved? Chapter 6: Systemic Failures and a Community Betrayed. After the trial, pressure mounted for answers. An independent review of Toronto police actions was led by retired Judge Gloria Epstein. Her 2021 report was damning. It concluded that systemic racism, homophobia, and classism played roles in how these cases were handled. The report stated, Toronto police could have done more. Implicit bias contributed to a lack of urgency and accountability. Families of the victims and the broader LGBTQ community echoed these findings. Many felt betrayed. For decades, relations between the community and the police had been strained. The McArthur case only deepened the divide. The review made over 150 recommendations, including improving missing persons investigations, addressing cultural competency, and enhancing trust with marginalized communities. As of 2023, many of these reforms are still in progress. The case also raised ethical questions about law enforcement surveillance, the use of forensic technology, and how authorities prioritize cases involving racialized or marginalized individuals. As one victim's brother said, we needed the police to act like our protectors, not our afterthought. Chapter 7: Remembering the Lost. Reckoning with the future, the legacy of Bruce McArthur is not just one of horror. It is one of failure, silence, and finally, awakening. For too long, the lives of racialized gay men were deemed less urgent. Their disappearances were not met with headlines but shrugs. Their families were left in the dark. Their community's pleas were brushed aside. But the names of these 8 men are now etched into Canada's memory. Public memorials, art installations, and vigils continue to honor them. Their lives, full of hope, pain, and resilience, deserve remembrance beyond the manner of their deaths. Bruce McArthur's crimes have changed how Canada talks about serial killers, policing, and LGBTQ plus safety. His story is not just about a murderer. It is about a system that failed to stop him. As Toronto continues to heal, the most lasting tribute is to listen to those who are often ignored. Because silence, as this case proves, can be deadly. That's all for tonight's story. Another thread in the web of true crime, quietly unraveling as the night goes on. If you're still with me, thanks for listening. And if sleep has already taken you, may your dreams be peaceful and your mind at ease. I'll be here next time by the fire with another story waiting to be told. Good night, and don't forget to lock your doors.